Thank you for your patience, friends. Okay, welcome. We're going to be talking about how to network effectively and not feel like a weirdo. And just so we can get to know each other, hi, everybody. My name is Jewel Homan. You got to use like the gross part of your throat to say my last name, Homan. Um, and I like to think of myself as a connection activist in a world, right, where we are lonelier than ever, where um it's just all about efficiency all the time, which don't get me wrong, this is about effectiveness. But I like to help people create meaningful relationships. And that's why I think of myself as a connection activist. And is this going to work? It will. Okay. So I have a degree in psychology and sociology, and I also am certified by the Life Coach School. I am also certified in a method that just works with the subconscious mind. And I am proudly a member of the Ethical Coaching Collective in the International Association of Counselors and Therapists. I think sometimes it's helpful just to know, okay, this person, right, like really understands the topics here. But here's a little bit about me, just so we can, again, like get to know each other, want to hear about all of you as well. So growing up, I really struggled with social perfectionism and I had a low self-esteem, and that was pretty constant throughout my entire life. And then I hired a coach to help me heal my attachment style. And it was the first time that I could really like let love in and feel close to people and maintain healthy relationships without being like, I always joke like I was the crazy ex-girlfriend, without like being the crazy ex-girlfriend. It was the first time I could do all of that. And I just fell in love with it. So I started coaching in 2020, and I had lots of success. The pandemic hit. I was sitting alone at my office, talking to people online, helping people every single week. And I realized how lonely I actually was. It was a time where I really sat with like my connections and realized I was craving so much more. And so then I worked with the leading friendship expert and researcher. She's doing amazing work in this world. And then I started applying her research to my life. And I created my dream friend group. And I just like really started enjoying socializing so much more. And people started asking me about it. So, and that's what I love to do now is I help people go from socially anxious, and I like to say to be socially delighted. I help them go from lonesome to meaningfully connected. And today we're going to talk about feeling like a weirdo and dreading networking to networking effectively and actually having fun with it. Right? It really is can be so much fun. And the biggest barrier is so funny. So I went over this with my partner today because he actually asked about this topic. He was like, "That's what your presentation's on?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh, can you show me?" And I was like, "Sure." So I was showing him this today. And for the life of him, he kept naming off like a bunch of things that are the barriers to networking effectively. And he was like, time. And he was like, all of this stuff. But really, the biggest barrier to networking effectively is we find it draining. We don't like it. And that makes a lot of sense because networking is very similar to socializing. And for a lot of us in the world, we think socializing is draining. Now, can y'all see this okay? Okay, just making sure. And here's some of the reasons why, if I can find my little, oop, there we go, we found it. We think it's just draining innately. We're like, yep, this takes a lot of energy. We think that being introverts means that it sucks even more for us. We think we don't have any time. We have like a low opinion of ourselves, and maybe we're over analyzing social interactions. That was me all the way, trying to see if people liked me, how they felt about me. And therefore, I wasn't present in the moment. And then we think like, oh, we just either click with somebody or we don't. Like we just click and get along and connect, or we don't. Almost like it's this magical, mystical thing that happens to us. And although it feels that way when we do click with somebody, That's not, clicking is actually in our control. And we'll talk a little bit about it today. And the same and reasons are there for why we find networking draining and why we feel like weirdos when we are networking. Is we think we have to convince people or sell people on it, right? Like that feels like a lot. It's like almost like putting on, kind of like when people tell me like, oh, I have to fake confidence or have to put on confidence, right? Like we have to convince or sell people. We make judgments about ourselves or about our offer when we don't get the immediate feedback that we want. We don't see people like leading in, like big smiles at us, or when we don't get the immediate feedback that we want, we make it mean negative things about us or our offer. We think we don't have any time and we feel graspy, right? Maybe we're in a space, right, where we're like, oh, I really need clients right now, or I really, need my business to grow, and we're feeling graspy for people to buy from us. And of course, we find this draining because this is like transactional. This is not connecting, right? This is transactional and just making transactions all the time, or trying to force transactions rather than connecting. So, of course, it's draining. And it's not that networking doesn't take any energy. That's not what I'm saying, right? It's not that socializing doesn't take any energy. It's just often we make it draining because we think these thoughts and we don't give it a chance to give us energy as well. I know that everybody here has had a really, really great conversation with somebody and has just felt so energized afterwards and so fueled, right? And then if we don't find it, oh my gosh, and then we don't do it effectively, we don't network effectively if we do it at all, right? Why would our brain want to do something that it finds draining? And does this mean that you have to feel airy-fairy about networking and always choose it to that way network effectively? No, I am not saying that you have to feel absolutely in love with everything about it. Just like I tell my clients with socializing, you don't have to like feel like, again, airy fairy and rainbows and sunshine about socializing in order to, have fun socializing. We're just going to make it a little bit more fun because a bit easier ahead of time, because that goes a long, 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 long way. So I want us to think about it. I'm going to give you everything you need to make it easier today to network again effectively and to enjoy it. But I want you to think about it as like we have these scales, and what we want to do is we just want to tip the scale a little bit more in the direction of enjoying it. And that is more than enough. That is so like so good. It's so much more than enough to create new results. Just tipping that scale a little bit. And I know this for certain because I've done this for myself, but I've also watched clients do this over and over again when it comes to socializing. So again, networking is basically socializing, and socializing is basically connecting. And so here's how we can really connect and have fun and network effectively because we're more focused on the connection part. Right? And just to like summarize everything I just said, it's not about being super impressive or saying the right thing. And it's often trying to be super impressive that we find draining. It's about caring about people, right? So you're a human in front of me and I'm going to connect with you. That's what it's about. And I was again going over this with my partner earlier, and he goes, and that's the actual impressive part, like caring about people. And I was like, yeah, I totally agree, because we've all been in networking rooms where you can tell someone is just trying to sell to you, to pitch to you, and you're just like, okay, right? Like, all right. But when somebody is really interested in you and cares about you and has awesome things to collaborate with you on, that's the actual impressive part. So Here are the very simple 4 steps to network officially and effectively and to actually enjoy it. Okay. 1, be passionate about your work. And we're going to go into all of this in detail, but be passionate about your work. Be curious of others. And again, I'm going to go over all of this in detail. Just wanted to summarize it. But make sure you are aiming to benefit you and other people with your offers. So if you're offering to be on a podcast, or if you are offering for like mentorship, or right, like having like, oh, I've heard, I don't know what it's called, but like referral tradesies. I don't I don't know what that's called, but if you're offering something along those lines, make sure you are benefiting both of you. And then, and you guys are here with the expert for this, right? Use a system to build the relationships. So let's get into it. So being passionate about your work is really, in my opinion, thinking highly of your work, taking your work seriously, right? And then feeling into your heart, into your why of your work. And so some questions to kind of like start stimulating this is like, why do you value your work? Right? Why is it important to you? And what is possible with it? What is possible with your offer, with your business? Right? Why are you a pro? Right? And then I also put right here is that before networking, it can be so helpful to write out your negative thoughts and to self-coach, because again, the goal here is not to have no negative thoughts about you, your offer, about networking. We're just aiming to tip the scale. So I really recommend that before you go to like a networking event, it's really helpful just to list out all of your thoughts, give them some attention. So I wanted to make sure I included that too. But again, thinking highly of your work. Why do you value it? What is possible with it? And then for feeling into your heart, into your why of this work, I know you got into your offer for a reason. I don't think people start a business, especially for no reason, right? Right? Why did you choose this? What got you into this? Right? I think especially as time goes on, or we're doing the day-to-day thing, sometimes I feel like we can step away from this. But what was your story? Like, why, how did you get into this? Like, reconnect to that. And what change are you creating with your work? It doesn't matter if it's hair extensions or life coaching, right? Like, what change are you creating with your work? Change in the market, change in the world, change in somebody else, right? I even have up here, like, what do you really want them to know? Like, really, what do you want other people to know from you, about who you are, about what you offer? Like, what do you like? Not the impressive things, or like, I always know that I've stepped into, oh, I got to be impressive when I'm like, oh, I can help you rewire your brain. I'm like, okay, like, let's step back into my heart, right? Let's step back into why this really matters, right? And what do I really want them to know about me? So I actually want to encourage you to pick a question, and you can go ahead and pause for a minute, um, and just like think about the answer. Let's simmer in it for a sec. I'll give you a couple minutes for it. All right. You finish up your last sentence. Of course, you can come back to this whenever you want. Okay. And I really want you to think about this because we might be like, okay, how does this help me network effectively? Right. So here I have a model for you on networking. And I have up here, right? My work really matters because, right? My work really matters because. Um, and for me, like I will take it to the to the nth degree, if you will. And I will be like, my work really matters because if more people had more friendships and more meaningful relationships, maybe we wouldn't have like so much consumerism and so much like hustle. You got to like sell all of these like products. Maybe we would have more people wanting to just like go to the like a picnic with a friend. Maybe we would have less retail therapy and more I'm going to call my best friend and talk to her, right? My work really matters because I really encourage you to finish that sentence if it feels good to you. And then here I have feeling purposeful and passionate. And how do you show up when you're feeling that way? Right? You speak from your why, you speak from your heart. People get to really see you. You speak highly of your work. You're probably a lot more present with them, right? Rather than thinking of impressive things to say. Right? You give them an opportunity to get to know you, like to get to know you and to really see you. And that is a huge part of connection, is really seeing each other. And so this results in you connect to your work and how it really matters. And you show them why your work really matters authentically, right? I have a client who also is a coach that I have seen her do this over and over again. She will get so excited about her work and then go talk to people and be like, oh my gosh, and you're so enthralled. I was like, wow, like the student definitely surpassed the teacher in that. It was captivating. Okay, so then we have step 2, which is to be curious of others, right? And just like how we are valuing our work and being passionate about our work, it's the same here with other people. Like, be curious about the value of their work. Like, feel into their heart and why they chose their work. What is their why for it? How did they get into this? Right? Like, what client stories do they have? What is possible with it? Why are they a pro? Again, it could be hair extensions or like a CEO of a marketing firm, right? Why did they choose it? What is their story? Honestly, I I can never forget somebody's like name and face. I'm so good about pairing them. And I really think part of the reason why is because I've made such a habit out of asking people about their story. Our brain likes to remember stories. We like to connect through stories. And so when I am talking to somebody and I'm like curious about their story, I swear I just remember them after that. It sticks with me. Right? What change are they creating? Everybody is looking to create. I have this firm belief that everybody's looking to create and contribute to society in some kind of way, right? How fun is it to get curious and to find out what that is for somebody? So I also want to encourage you to pick some questions that feel good to you to start asking people. But even right here, right now, because curiosity is something that often I find isn't like a flexed muscle enough, right? So I really want to encourage you just to whoever pops in your head, just think of somebody you know, and get really curious about them. Right? And I'll do it too. Right? Like, why do they value their work? Or I had the wrong there. Embarrassing. What what kind of stories do they have? Why are they a pro? Let's just pause for a minute and just allow yourself to think about somebody. Okay. Go ahead and finish up your sentence. It's so fun because the more I notice every time you get curious about somebody, you have like 1,000 more things that you're curious about with them. Just expands. Okay, I lost my mouse again. Oh goodness. Oh, there it is. Okay. So fun fact, we like people that like us. We like people that like us because people that like us or show that they like us are people that build us up, or people that, maybe compliment us, or people that really allow us and give us the gift to feel seen. Right? So often it's, and pay attention to it too. Like it's not about, oh, I really find this person impressive or this person really cool. It may be that, but so often it's like, oh, that person made me feel really seen and included. That was really nice. I like them. Right? Okay. So number 3, benefit both of you with your offers. Right? So be enthusiastic about the value that they bring. It's really so simple. And be enthusiastic about the value that you bring. This here alone is just, it creates a togetherness. And I told you earlier today that people think clicking with somebody, really meshing with somebody, is something that just happens or it doesn't. Let me give you a little secret. Clicking with somebody is just having a thought and a feeling that reflect togetherness. That's it. Oh, I get them. They get me. We're in this together. Or, oh, we both do that. That's what clicking is. That's it. Fun fact. So this is how I landed the largest women's conference in my state in Michigan, America's High Five. This is how I land the largest women's conference, is because I was so enthusiastic about the conference and about what this woman was doing. And like, we don't have women conferences here. Like, we have some in Detroit, but to have like the largest women conference be somewhere that's not in Detroit, and literally we had like Miss Michigan come, Miss America, or somebody wanted to come. But I was so enthusiastic about what this person was doing, and then I was so enthusiastic about my value and my work as well. And I was like, how cool would it be if all of these women got help feeling like safe at this social event? Right? How many women are going or are afraid to go? And what if we can make those women feel safer and have them feel like they belong? What if I could talk to them at the event? Right? So it was being super enthusiastic about both of those things and thinking about, in a way, right? Thinking we're in this together, right? Like I can help build her up, and of course, it was a lot of exposure for me, right? Okay, so we've talked about being passionate about your work, being curious of others, benefiting both of you with your offers. Now let's talk a little bit about using a system to build the relationships. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what creates connection. Something that creates connection, it's just one factor, but for the sake of simplicity, something that creates connection is consistency. So as you see here, I have like a triangle and it has acquaintances at the bottom, friends, good friends, and like best friends at the top, right? And as we create more consistency with somebody, we move somebody from acquaintances to best friends, right? This is how you, like, if you have ever worked, I don't know, maybe like you worked right next to somebody. This is how you guys became such good friends, is because you were sitting next to that person every single day. You had lots of frequency with this person, and therefore lots of consistency. So it moved that person up your connection triangle. So consistency, another way of thinking about it is that frequency, right? Of seeing somebody every day, seeing somebody often, right? Connecting, seeing each other consistently. But it's also history, because a lot of people, one thing that they'll tell me is they'll be like, consistency doesn't matter. Like, I've had a friend since the 3rd grade and I talk to her like every 4 months. And I'm like, well, consistency does matter, because one, you are talking to that friend every 4 months, you are being consistent. But two, you have a lot of history with this person. You have a lot of history. You have a lot of consistency built up. So although you talk every 4 months now, at one point, right, since the 3rd grade, you had lots of sleepovers. You had lots of Halloweens together. You went through things together, right? So you have a lot of consistency with this person. So if we think about it, it's almost like a little, like a bank account, right? You just deposited so much into that bank account with that friend. So of course you only need to talk to them like every 4 months to feel close to them, right? Lots of consistency and connection built up. So that is what consistency is for connection. And so we can use a system to create that consistency and then therefore build that relationship with people that we're networking with. And so I want to offer a couple of systems, but I want to encourage you to think about your own, whatever it feels good to you, because what feels good to me isn't going to feel good to you or good to Megan, right? So you can use like calendar reminders or like Siri reminders. You can put, one thing I was using was I would put, oh, I'm going to put a little calendar event, like a little 15-minute reminder in my Google Calendar to remind me to reach out to this person in like 2 months, right? But there's also a couple softwares that are present. I have just started messing around with Penny, so I don't have enough feedback on that. But a long time ago, I used Teamsy, and I really liked it. I will say they are for they're geared towards network marketing, but they're really good tools, because what they'll do is you can put in there like somebody's contact information and then be like, oh, remind me, 6 months from now to reach out about this or to check in with this. This way you are, again, just making it easier in yourself to have consistency and to build that relationship. And I also want to offer to build it into your routine. So for me personally, I have a lot of calls on Tuesdays. And so I find that is a great time for me to network, because I don't have really like solid focus time. So it's a really good time to reach out. It's a really good time to check in. And so, and honestly, to have fun with it. So that is one thing that I do on Tuesday. So I encourage you to build it into your routine. And however that looks for you, it might only be once a month. It doesn't matter, right? Whatever feels good to you. So the thing here that matters the most is our mindset, because again, my goal here wasn't to come here today and then to just add something onto your plate, right? I wanted to help you know exactly how to enjoy this process and therefore make it more effective, but to really enjoy networking and to enjoy connecting with other people. And so again, our mindset matters here the most. Um, and it's like the juice, it's uh the super like power up fuel for doing these things, for actually reaching out to people and using something like Penny, or for checking your Penny, whatever it may be. The mindset here matters the most, right? Like, who knows what this could result in? Who knows what this could create for you, right? I didn't know for me, definitely wouldn't be able to tell you a year ago it would be the largest conference in Michigan. Definitely not. And again, the juice here is really to feel connected. This is what's going to help you actually not force yourself to reach out to people, but want to reach out to people. And one thing that I find that Megan does so well as somebody that is her friend and has been her colleague for years is that you can tell Megan feels connected with people, and then she'll go ahead and she'll think of you, or she'll be like, oh, I like just the other day, Megan, you sent me a podcast, right? And because feeling connected, right, Megan can reach out like that, and it becomes it goes from being a chore to being fun to being enjoyable, and therefore being sustainable and effective, right? So steps 1 and 2 here, right? Being passionate about your work, really believing in your work, taking your work seriously, stepping into your heart of it. And step 2, being really curious about other people, being amazed by other people, right? Really boils down to those 2 things. And one of my favorite thoughts I just wanted to offer to all of you is that when you are networking, you are offering the gift of connection to somebody. And it is a gift, mind you, that people are starving for. We are in a loneliness epidemic. So offering that gift of connection, and I like to say like offering them space to feel special, to feel seen in a busy world where a bunch is going on, that is such a gift to you and to them. And then my last point here in consistency is that long-term consistency matters way more than short-term. So I don't think you should spend like hours a day on your Teamzy or your Penny, or messaging people all the time. I know you have a business that you were running, that you were building systems for, right? So what I want to offer is that long-term consistency matters way more than the short term. If you reach out to somebody, even a year from now, right? That matters. You don't need to get hung up on, oh, I need to make sure I keep these connections like every month consistent, right? Even reaching out like once a year, once every couple 6 months is still enough to build a relationship. It's still enough to pop in again, to make somebody feel seen, to partner with somebody, to share your heart and the value of your work, right? It's still more than enough. Okay, the long term matters way more, which is why it's also helpful to use a system, because then you can keep track of all of those people. Okay, so again, going over the steps, how to network oh my, why can't I talk today? How to network effectively and to enjoy it, right? Being passionate about your work, being curious of others, benefiting both of you with your offers, and using a system to build relationships. It really is that simple. And I want to offer that it's a very similar process. I love to help people take on the self-image of being magnetic. A lot of what we talked about today is what makes somebody magnetic. Just a little fun fact. And I also want you to think about like where you are now. And now that you have all this information, right? where you could be in your future just after like watching this training, right? Like, why is your future self grateful that you came to this training and decided to network? Like, what doors have you opened for your future self throughout doing this? Just to give you some props right here, right now, because even this step right here in the beginning matters. I'm sure some of you have been networking more than that. But still, each step matters, and you just took a big one by being here today. So that is what I have for y'all. Thank you so much for having me and talking about some of my favorite stuff in the world, networking. And I would love to know if anybody has any questions or any comments. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing if I can figure it out. Oh, I can. It's right here. But if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. If not, I would love to know a little bit about you, about what brought you here today.
I have like so many thoughts, but okay, I was about to say, but I wanted other people to like jump in. So Maria, go for it.
The way that Megan sets up networking for like how we're learning about it in her mastermind is kind of like approaching it in my mind like two or three different kind of categories. It's almost like cold lead, medium, hot.
Ooh, nice.
And I consider hot leads like people that I've done a consult with, or who have specifically reached out and asked to have a consult call, even if they, they've like reached out to me and asked for something specific. Medium is people that I already have a connection with, that I'm nurturing, that I might already have, I might know where they live, or I might have been like a former colleague of theirs. And then the cold is like, I've never met them. I'm like finding them on Instagram, or like I go to a networking event and I've never met this person ever before. And the network, like I love the medium and the hot like lead networking. I feel like I have a little bit more trouble with the connection, like cold lead. And I was curious if you could talk to like maybe more specifics when it's like, and I think it specifically it's like online, and I was bringing it up kind of last week's call. It's like if I'm like standing with someone and meeting them, that feels really comfortable, and I feel like it's easy to find a connection. When I'm like reaching out on like social media and like trying to expand my network, sometimes I feel like I'm just wondering if you have any tips for like what are the things I should look for in terms of like how I can make that connection, since like social media is a little bit different where obviously everyone's there on their own terms. But when you're reaching out, it feels a little bit more like blindsidey or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, tell me a little bit more. When you were reaching out to somebody online, yeah, just tell me a little bit more about why you're reaching out. I'd want to know. You said to expand your network, but I'm curious.
Yeah, and now like as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, it kind of feels maybe it's like it's coming from a place of like wanting to like only about me, wanting to expand my network. And I can see where that of course makes me feel like a little weird, probably, where I'm not looking for how it would be beneficial to them. And I think that maybe the way I'm approaching it is like numbers based and not like instead like when I'm like reaching out for new people, I think it would feel a lot more like meaningful maybe if I was making sure that there was like a like I think it's so I'm an executive coach, and I think like sometimes I can tell if someone I can kind of I don't know, I can't always really tell if like they work in the corporate world or they're like an entrepreneur. And I work with people like consultants that have their own businesses too. I'm just my brain is like kind of feeding me a bunch of feedback right now, and I'm thinking like, oh, how can I reach out to someone that I've never met before and like make it valuable for them as well, when I don't know a ton about them yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you started answering your own question.
Maybe. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's what this is for, in a way, right? Like a space to come to how you want this work to interact with it, and you want it to work for you. And I think you have a really great self-awareness, and no wonder why it feels, like you said, it feels weird, is because it's like, okay, how can I expand my network? And the second you started talking like, oh, like, to help them, I watched you like start talking about this person who's out in the world as like a person, rather than like, oh, let me like expand. And you know what I mean? So it was just like, this
Yeah.
is a person. And so when you were describing like, oh, I can maybe sometimes tell if somebody's in the corporate world or what, you're starting to get curious about them. So honestly, one of my and it works whether you were in person or online. I would argue more online does this work, even because yeah, I'm sure you get them too, like messages from like spam messages all like every day, right? That are like promising you exorbitant amounts of wealth and stuff. So really just being curious about a person, offering somebody care or the opportunity to be seen, that is valuable. That is valuable. And so I want to ask you, like, when you're thinking about, like, maybe even if it's tomorrow, whenever it is, the next time you are messaging like cold leads, like, how do you want to feel about it? How do you want to think about it now that we've kind of teased this out?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. I think I want to reset my expectation for thinking about networking as like, when I like put in my numbers at the end of the week on like the financial tracker thing, like I've only been doing it for, I've only really been like, I used to track this stuff, and then I had a baby, you saw her, and then I stopped tracking everything. So I'm like rebuilding systems. So I've only been like tracking again for maybe we're on like week 5 or 6. And I can, now that we're talking about it, it's like I can see how quickly I went to like, gotta get those numbers up. And so I want to feel like because I feel like I have the quality piece when I'm doing the nurture thing. It's like it's so easy for me to be like, where are you living now? What's new? How's like your kid? Like I love, what I can like I feel like it's easy for me to kind of, maybe I don't remember every like name or where someone's working, but it feels like easy to shoot off a message, where I think for the connection piece, like resetting my expectation that like a bigger number in that column doesn't mean better. And that, because that's what I was feeling. I was like, okay, is this really like worth it? Because I did a little bit of it how I thought I was a good way. And then a lot of people reach back out and they're like, hey, what account did you find like, what account are you talking about? I'm not a member, but like maybe I looked into it, maybe I would be. And then I was like, oh, I think they think that I'm like working for the organization that had the Instagram account. So I think that it's, for me, what's going to feel good is that like when I go to meet someone new, even online, that it like really feels like a quality connection.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel, I think I was like just picking out accounts and like messaging because I was like, okay, let's like just fire out a bunch of messages. And that's what, it didn't feel quality. And I was like, I don't know that this feels like, I'm not sure even this feels like, I don't know that this is going to like work.
Yeah.
Some of that might be like my mindset. And I'm open to that. But I also think that like spending a little bit more time making sure, like finding the connection piece feels right. And I hope that I can do that in a way that I don't get caught in the like, it has to be the perfect outreach. So I think there's like probably a bit of a balance in that.
Absolutely. And again, like we talked about, a little bit goes a far way, or oh my gosh, it goes a long way. Like taking a moment to just be like, oh, I'm a little curious about this person, or especially if you're looking at like a profile or something, like, oh, right. Just a moment is more than enough. But I also want to offer, so you said, oh, I'm just going to fire out like a bunch of messages, right? Like, how much more fun would it be for you to just be like, oh, like I have these few people, like you just said, and right, like I think there could be like a connection
Yeah.
there. Like, let me just see, like, how much more fun is that going to be? Like you
Yeah.
said, how much more quality is that going to be? And you were
Totally.
talking about your financial tracker. I really think quality connection is probably what's really going to help that rather than like quantity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. What do you think?
Totally. I think yes. And part of it is just, I think maybe the mindset part for me is looking at just like making sure I'm interpreting the numbers in a way that works for me and not in a way that's like more is always better and like using it to sabotage,
Mhm.
which is like so tempting all the
Yeah,
time.
and it's our culture too, where
So,
it's mirrored back to us. So yeah. Um, so good. Maria, that was I'm very glad that you said that because that was very genius. And I'm really glad that this is also being recorded. Um, for that reason, because I'm sure so many people are wondering like the same thing. So thank you for bringing that up and for like sharing your mind with us on that because those thoughts were very, 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 very valuable.
I hope they were coherent at the
You
end.
know, they were, but also they were so beautifully teased out. So thank you for both.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and Megan, you were gonna say something?
Oh my gosh, I have so much to say, but Demetria, I want to hear if you have anything you want to add first, because like I have thoughts and I'll like I'll share all the notes I took with you, Jewel. And if you don't mind sharing that PowerPoint, I can make like a little worksheet that goes along with it and I'll share it with you too. And I'll tell you all my thoughts about it later. But Demetria, do you have any thoughts?
Just I had a couple that was actually very good. So one thing, because I like networking in person, I do like to go out and meet people, but I also want to join some more online networking groups. I'm in a couple, but really plan it out, do it consistently, like you said. And then what I really need to implement is the system to help me like consistently follow up and connect with them after meeting them. So that's what I'm going to work on. So
Heck
thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
And I want to like, so the thought that I had is about that specifically. And then going back to Maria, what you were saying is something that happened, like Jewel and I have connected over social anxiety, feeling like I feel like I'm an extrovert introvert. So like I really present extroverted, but a lot of times I'm very like socially anxious and just like also like wanting to get it right and be like make sure everyone feels like a someone, even if it's at the like risk of, or at my own detriment. And one of the things that I realized is that there was a point in my business where the time I spent networking was then occupied by clients. And I tried to keep the same system going, even though I literally like didn't have the time. So it was like I kept trying to like fill out my tracker every single day and find new people to connect with. The connections felt less genuine. It felt like a chore. And then I felt really anxious to like continue to connect with them. So one of the things that I thought just was brilliant, Jewel, that you mentioned is that all these things are for you and will like you've got to think about what works for you, and then I want to add that you want to think about what works for you now might need to be reevaluated and reimagined at a later time, because what can happen is like your business is going to shift and grow, and you want those systems to shift and grow with you as they do, as your business does. So that goes for everybody. And every system that I ever teach you, you're going to change it probably and make it more for you. And then the other thing I had, I literally like wrote on the side, y'all. I was like, I didn't want to like, I was afraid if I like typed, it would like ruin the recording. And I was like, nope, we're going to do this. But I was thinking about Maria for you. going back to that why of like why you're doing this. And then first off, connecting with somebody that is someone within your maybe like some sort of connection, whether it's maybe the same position you had or someone that you know, someone from a local area. We talked about like the yoga studios and things like that. And then also thinking about like, if you ever hear Maria talk about how passionate she is about changing and creating women that are rising in the ranks in corporate America, I mean, it is, you are fueled with fire. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I see that you're like a woman who has like made it to this level of leadership, like first off, congrats. Like I did that as well. And like, I'm just so glad that there are more women that are being represented in the leadership roles within our like within corporate America or things like that. That's how I could see you like just first off making them feel seen, beautiful, by the way, and just like special and unique because they are. And then you could also build connections that way. That was just like an idea I had for you. How does that land? Yeah.
I like that face.
Like the turning around of all these things. And another thing that I wrote down, did you work with Dorothy?
Yes.
Okay, so Jewel and I also shared a coach, and one of the things that she says is being committed but not attached to your goals. So it's like also like being committed. Like I want to create this momentum of people who are curating their life and like creating intentional lives. That's what Demetria does, or Maria creating this momentum of women being represented in leadership in corporate America and things like that. And then being able to like have that commitment to that vision, and also then being open to like, oh, I thought this person was a really like, they also shared that vision, and maybe they're special in a different way that doesn't always fit my vision, and maybe they're supposed to click in a different way. And also like, I'm still ready to like find the people who want this. So I was like, I think that's all the notes that I have written down. But this is so good, Jewel.
That was so good. And that's so true because right, I think I was trying to say that, but in a different way. But that is so concise and so simple, right? Like being committed and not being attached, like being committed to connecting and not being attached to what happens to it. Yeah. So beautiful.
Literally, I was like, everything that I invested in you was like summed up. I was like, that is going to serve me forever. And you said something else, and I'm trying to find it. And oh, the feeling of togetherness and that reflection. I was thinking, oh yes, of course, Maria, baby girls, very important. I was thinking like, I think that's something that's really important in our marketing as well, that people feel seen, like heard and understood within the marketing and things like that. And I was wondering if like and also I think we might be out of time, but like I feel like that's another way, like you can share, like even like, so like when I talk with you guys about like the systems for marketing, we talk about cold leads, and it's always about like giving value. But I was also thinking about like value could also be like thinking about the connectedness that we have, and like being like, oh, it's just valuable for someone to be like, hey, like maybe being an entrepreneur is hard. Do you ever feel lonely sometimes? Do you feel like your life isn't intentional and you want to make it so? Do you ever feel like you're like alone and you look around like on your CEO meeting and you're the only woman that's represented there? Like, regardless of the situation, I think like that can be valuable in and of itself. It doesn't always have to be a tool, a tactic, a strategy. Like the one that I did for today was like about like how it's normal to feel scared as an entrepreneur, and you want to overcome that major obstacle and like still go for your passion anyways. Like, and if you need help, get coaching. Like, but like, I think that was like the last piece I had to say, but this was so damn good. Literally, like I just wrote pages and pages. I was like, yes, so good.
Yeah, I love that. I love to hear it. Yeah, thank you for having me and for like facilitating such a great conversation. I mean, I could talk about this all day long, but what everybody added to it too. I mean, again, I'm just glad this is being recorded.
Same. And oh yes, of course.
I have one other thing. Just kind of how I'm thinking about networking. It's not just like at a networking event like this weekend. I met a ton of new people. And just like you said, Joel, connecting with them and talking to them and kind of adding value. So it's not just networking at events, it's like life, building networks in your life. So yeah.
Yeah. And when you are feeling passionate about your work and you're being curious about other people, that becomes like a lead, whether you intended it to or not. Yeah, that's such a good reminder. And that's something, I know you mentioned building your systems of following up with people. That you already have it sounds like a great bank to start with so maybe some of the people that you met. Was it at a networking event? No. But did that expand your network and your connections? Yeah. Definitely. So that's something also to add here. Yeah, so good. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, and just another thing, like if you ever want to like reconnect with it, like sometimes I'll forget, like if I'm trying to do it like the old system that I had, I would add people every single day that I was talking to. And a way that I've had to adjust it recently was like, I'm just doing it every week. So like maybe at the end of the week when you're doing like your weekly reflection, I don't know if you're like, or like even like on that 10 minutes, because Jewel's going to come and she's going to facilitate our coaching call on the 25th, I believe, on that next Tuesday, which is going to be super fun. But we do usually do go from 10 to 10:10, which is like 3 10s, which is exciting to say. I've never said it like that. Within that, you're going to like when you're doing that like weekly reflection, you could always use that time, pull up that networking spreadsheet and be like, oh, who did I meet? And I'm like, I went to someone's podcast party and I just like reached out to them and I was like, hey, what was your sister-in-law's name? Like, I would love to like get to know them a little better. They got my business card, but I want to like follow up with them. And like, so just like things like that. Like just have a set time. And I love that like idea of habit stacking that you mentioned, Jewel, like about like using a system and like building it into your day to day. If that beginning of our call is that time to do it, maybe just like reflecting on the week and being like, oh shoot, I need to like contact that person again.
So good. So good, making it simpler and easier, of course.
And I'm sorry to hold everybody over like a couple minutes. Jewel, thank you so much for taking the time. You're awesome.
Thank you. It was so fun. It was so fun.
And I'll include that the presentation worksheet and Jewel's contact information in and again, don't contact her and just like ask her questions, but if you want to follow her along, I mean, like, I'm not paying you to do that. So maybe if you want to reach out to her and be like, hey, if you feel comfortable, like just like,
Yeah, you can definitely ask questions. It's okay. Thanks, Megan. I appreciate you.
And I will see you guys tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And Jewel, they will see you in 2-3 weeks.
Can't wait. I'll have some familiar faces. All right, bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.